Hey, everybody, before we actually start our Transformation Tuesday call tonight, I just want to share something that's going to be really important for everybody. And that is starting September 1st, when we switch to all digital, there are some things that won't completely merge into the new program. And some of it happens to be old customers and perhaps some distributors. I don't really understand the partner team part, but there's a solution to how to download everybody's name with name, phone number, and email. Patty and I are going to do a Zoom call just together where I instruct her how to do it, and you all will see where she's clicking, and then slides will then be posted on boards. If that Zoom call goes smoothly, as we hope it will, right, Patty? I will then post that onto our Facebook group, Turn Up the Heat, as well as the Heat Team YouTube, as well as the slides for click here, click here, click here will be on boards. This is something you will all have to do before September 1st. So be looking out for me to post it. If it doesn't totally work, we'll figure out the next step. But just wanted to let you all know that. And now we're going to transition into our Transform Tuesday call. And I'm going to turn this over to you, Kirsten.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nikki. Welcome to Transformational Tuesday. It's August 13th. And I was just counting up because I'm usually guessing at how many Transformational Tuesdays we've done. But we started in January of 2023 with Patty Buchholz kicking us off with one word. And we are now on our 20th Transformational Tuesday, which just can't even believe it. But it's been such an honor for me to really find and highlight the true leaders in our company that are doing that heart work that we know is so important. This has been my legacy to the late Chris Cotton, who really taught me about heart-centered leadership, along with the amazing Nikki Cotton that we have tonight. And Nikki actually did a presentation for a leadership group about a month ago, and there was just something that really hit me about the content that she was sharing, and she came up with the title tonight of, my goodness, what is it? Building Resilience, which we all need more of. So Nikki hardly needs an introduction, but for any of you who are watching that don't know Nikki as well as some of us, Nikki was an elementary school teacher. She owned and ran a construction company for years. She was married for 40 years and has two beautiful, amazing grown daughters. She's been with the Juice Plus company. I'm not sure because my bio doesn't have it, but I know over 30 years. She spends her summers in the Lake Mountains of Ashland, Oregon, up at Lake of the Woods, and winters at the Central Coast beaches of California. She's a 100 Club member. She's been awarded the most new business in 1 year. She's an Elton Award nominee for children's research, and she is a gift to all of us. No surprise to any of us, her gift is inspiring people to live lives of passion, purpose, and possibility by discovering her own authenticity. And that has certainly been true of your mentoring to me, Nikki, and I'm just excited to let you take it away and just learn more from you tonight. So great. Here you go.
What I'm going to do really quickly, Kirsten, is I'm going to mute everybody for a second. That will include you, so that when people come on, they'll be muted. So hang on 1 second. I'm just going to wait, where to go? Mute all. Okay. And then I want to thank you for that great introduction, Kirsten. That was fun to hear that. And I love being on this call. And I'm really excited about this particular call because over the last 3 years, one of the things that as my mother got older, and even in having Alzheimer's, one of the things I most respected and loved about my mother was her resiliency. I thought she was just all the things that I thought she didn't do right or didn't do this growing up or wasn't strong enough character, all became very clear to me that her superpower was resiliency. And that's a really important gift to have, especially as a superpower. So, and one of the things I've learned about me over the last few years is that I really have resiliency as well. And I'm blessed to somehow have developed it. It's such a critical piece in our lives to move forward and get things done and to be happy and grateful. And so one of the things I did is I quickly looked up the definition of resiliency in my head. I had my own definition, which was to bounce back, to come back after hard situations. And the dictionary says the capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties by springing back. So that's exactly what resiliency is to me. And so my first question to all of you would be, what happens to you when something happens to you that's really difficult, uncomfortable because of what somebody has said or what actual situation has occurred that makes you terribly uncomfortable? Maybe it feels like a punch in the stomach, but what happens to you when something comes up? For me, like my heart beats and I get a little bit more nervous. This is going to be, of course, interactive. So I'm going to just ask if you just to unmute yourself and tell us what, Patty.
I think I step back for a moment and process it, but then I try to process it in a positive way. Most often I'm able to jump right back in, but
Okay.
sometimes I just have to kind of put it through a filter before. And I have found that I'm actually safer if I do that instead of just jumping in like I think I know how to do it right.
So one of the things that you do is isolate for a period of time. And it sounds like the period of isolation has gotten shorter, but maybe a year or two ago, that isolation period, I don't know, might have been longer. You've learned how to shift the story you've told yourself that makes one isolate. So one of the things that people do is isolate. So what other things? Heidi, you started to look like you were going to say something.
Yeah, for me, it depends. Like I get triggered differently by different people.
Yeah.
I know for one, like my brother, it makes me sick to my stomach with some of the things that he says that trigger me. But I'm not going to go to, I have found some tools that have really helped, but
yeah, I just want to focus on, right now what it is you feel. So
right,
what you feel to your stomach. Other reactions, Heidi? Anything else?
I grit my teeth.
Oh, great.
And then when it comes to with Lloyd, I get tense and defensive.
Oh. So I just want to comment that it's great that you have the awareness of that your responses to things that are uncomfortable are different depending on the people, depending on the situation. And so hearing you name that was great. Carrie.
I just did. Yeah. Sorry. I think initially when I have something that's pretty weighty, I feel kind of a heaviness internally, but if I go into my prayer room where I can listen to music or go into prayer, meditation, I work through it. But that initial thing that happens, I always feel like there's just like a weightiness.
Yeah.
Inside.
Yeah. We're not going to go to how you solve it. We're just going to go to how do you feel when that occurs? Anybody else? Sheila, Debbie, anybody else want to add?
Yeah, I do, Nikki.
Oh, great. Sheila and then Debbie.
I go within.
Okay.
And I breathe. And then I step forward and do what I need to do.
Okay. So isolation. I don't want to hear your solutions. Just want to hear you isolate. You go within. That's where you go. Is that right, Sheila? Okay. Anybody else? Anybody get frustrated or angry? Kirsten.
Yeah, I think what I do is I feel like a sucker punch in my gut, and my past tendency is just to withdraw and then get really angry and stew. But I'm working on it.
Yeah. So I know for me, Kirsten, the same thing. Get angry, stew on it, even if it's only for a few minutes. And that sucker punch, man, that's just like the feeling of kind of being sick. kind of a sick to your stomach feeling. Anybody else get something different or want to add to that?
I feel like crying a lot of times. I just want to cry because I don't like conflict. I don't like that feeling, that icky feeling that brings on. So
Yeah. So any other yeah, Barry.
Yeah, not always, but sometimes I have this, like, I got to take action. I'm almost like so pissed off that it's like, I want to solve it. I want to do it. I want to like move mountains. Sometimes it's just
Okay.
it's a different feeling than that other one that can come up. But ugh.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks. It's kind of nice to hear from a man here, isn't it? So, so what for you, just really quickly, what causes, can you think of anything that causes that trigger in you? What are the kinds of things that cause the trigger? Yeah, Patty.
It's funny, Nikki knows I'm at my sister's right now, so we've been talking about our past, but rejection and abandonment issues.
Yep. That's for a lot of people, Patty. A lot of people. Anybody else?
I was just going to say past experiences.
For me, being around people with anger issues really triggers me.
I would say sometimes it like makes me, if I'm having self-doubt.
Mm. Yeah. So going to that place of self-doubt. So what is it that actually makes that happen? What are we doing to ourselves that we actually get triggered? Anybody know what we're actually doing in those moments that takes us from having something happen? And then we get over here. What's the thing that happens in the middle? Anybody know?
well, I think we believe it to be true, whether it is or not.
Okay. And that belief of what it is that's true is something that we construct. Yeah. It's a story we tell ourselves. So somebody or something happens. You don't consciously say, oh, my brother just did this. He's an idiot. He's mean. He's this. And therefore, I'm going to go listen to music to calm myself down, or I'm going to whatever. It's a story we tell ourselves, and we construct that story very quickly. And it's a story typically about something that's happened in our past that matches that situation, usually coming from some kind of trauma. And trauma doesn't have to be huge. You know, we think of trauma as death or whatever, but trauma, I mean, I watched one the other day on my dock of the family across the dock. And this little boy, I will make this story very short. He was wearing a life jacket. All the kids were jackets. All the kids jumped in except for the little one. He was about 3. And he didn't want to go in. And he was afraid to go in. And the dad or the parent, I know already, and I'm watching all this, he didn't just drop him or throw him in. He gently put the kid in the water, but the kid was screaming the whole time, screaming at the top of his lungs. And the other kids swam up to him to help comfort him. That did not help. He's screaming, I want out, I want out, I want out. Finally, the kids kind of pushed him over the ladder and kind of helped him out. And this parent or adult kind of berated him for getting, wanting out of the water. And then I don't know what happened, but the kid was then sitting at the end of the dock by himself. And I'm just looking at this going, this is a moment in time that this kid will have trauma. He wasn't hurt. He was safe, but he will have trauma for this moment for the rest of his life. He may not even remember this moment, but it'll be a trust issue moment where somebody does something. And then that adult came back and was going to put him back in the water. I know, Kirsten, and I was watching it so intently that I actually shouted out, not on purpose, but it was a gut thing. I yelled out as loud as I could, no! And I don't know that they heard me, but I couldn't stand watching that happen again. So that's a trauma moment. Safe. Okay, it was only a moment in time, but that's still trauma for that little one. So he's
Nikki, what a counselor once told me about those traumas that happen early in our lives when we're going through something. You need to ask yourself, is the 5-year-old driving the car right now? Is it the 5-year-old's emotions that are coming up in you? and
And-
you know, who's in control right now.
Yeah, and that's really a great segue. So my next question is, how quickly do you recover? How quickly do any of you recover? And I don't want to know how, I just want to know how quickly. Heidi.
I've got pretty good. It used to take me a lot longer than it does now, but it depending on how triggered I am,
Yes.
it can be anywhere from seconds to minutes to hours, sometimes days. It really just depends, but it's definitely got shorter
Yes.
over time because it is a practice that I am conscious of.
I love that you did all those things, seconds, minutes, hours, days, no matter, and we keep practicing. So those days might before have been weeks or months. Now they're down to days. Those, hours may have been a day before, but now it's an hour. Just the awareness of how long it takes you to recover. And when you're recovering, one question, I was on a call the other day and this woman said it took her 4 days and she was just feeling so bad that it took her 4 days. Like it was just like it took 4 days. It shouldn't have taken 4 days. And I kept thinking, it takes what it takes until you get better at it. And feeling bad about how long it takes to recover doesn't help you. But being aware, oh my gosh, I'm on day 4 and I'm still upset about this thing. And so what are some techniques? That's what we're going to talk about. There are 5 different techniques that you can use to get you from offline. When you're offline, you are, not in the right space. When you're online, these are words that Brandon Barber uses, and I really like them. When you're offline, you're a crazy person. When you're online, you're on target. So how long does it take you to get back online? And here are some techniques that leaders use to get themselves back on target. So the first one, and you might want to write these down, is breath work. And what they suggest by the people that have studied this is 6 minutes. 6 minutes, maybe 36 breaths, taking in slowly, doing the box breath. There's all kinds of ways that you can work with your breath. Now, what if you don't have 6 minutes? Would 2 minutes be okay? Yeah, it's just the ultimate great thing if you're by yourself and you've just hung up from somebody and there's been confrontation. And Debbie, I just really don't like confrontation either. It's really hard for me. And, being healthy confrontation is something I'm really learning about and wanting to get better at. I tend to avoid it and I don't want to go there. So breath work. Number 2 is physical touch. So if you have a partner or a friend around and you can literally say, can you give me a hug, or what Debbie's doing, literally hugging yourself, just stopping, maybe closing your eyes, giving yourself that, going into the mirror and actually looking in the mirror while you're hugging yourself and say, I love you, and say your name. The physical touch, having a dog or a cat. For me, that's my instant go-to is my dog. Skipper just shifts everything for me. So that's a really go-to for me, but that physical touch. The third thing is cold water. Now they suggest a cold plunge. They even suggest starting out your day with a cold plunge to regulate your nervous system for the rest of the day. But if you're in the middle of a meeting and something erupts, you can excuse yourself, go into the bathroom and literally splash your face with cold water, put your hands in the cold water, put it on the back of your neck. All of these things can be done just in moments, but they really shift your nervous system. And Kirsten, in a moment, I'm going to ask you a little bit about your experience as an OT, because I asked you, do you know where this comes from? How soon they did this? And you said some really cool things to me. The fourth thing is vocal. It's sound. So you can for a few minutes. I don't know how many of you seen those beautiful things on Instagram where a baby is crying, just wailing, and dad or mom hold the baby, touch their tummy or their chest and om. And within seconds, the baby stops crying. And I've seen it, with laying on a guitar, I've seen playing piano, but there's all kinds of ways that actually show what sound does. So singing on your own, humming on your own, oming on your own, listening to music. is all of these are really viable ways to regulate your nervous system so that you can come back and be resilient, because that's what we're talking about. And number 5 is movement or exercise. So I love what Heidi said. She likes to combine the vocal, the music with the movement by dancing, putting music on and dancing it off. Now, clearly, if you're in a meeting or if you're with a group of people like this, you're not going to all of a sudden get up and start dancing. They're not going to know, but you can do some of these things silently. We learned, rubbing your hands together. You can do that under the table, feeling your fingertips, feeling your whole hand. Doing this, going like this, doing anything, dusting off. Sometimes I think of biblical stories where, Jesus, I think, said, when you leave their house, dust yourself off before going to the next one. That was regulating the nervous system 5,000 years ago, or whatever that timeline is. But Kirsten, can you say just a few words?
Yeah, I remember when you were doing this training before, Nikki, what's so exciting to me is that this has its foundations in what's called sensory integration that was discovered way back in the 50s and 60s by a woman named Jean Ayres. And for years, it was not a part of the mainstream of psychology or self-regulation. Like all these techniques are now becoming so much a part of the mainstream, but we really used them for special needs kids that had sensory integration problems, would get easily overwhelmed. And Sheila, you know these kids too. Anybody who's worked with special needs kids know that was the origin. But it's so exciting to me, one, to see the science that is now behind all of this. It's not woo-woo.
Yes.
It is brain science, which is so exciting. And the fact that all these things are becoming so mainstream and so much a part of a repertoire that we all can use. So
yeah. I'm going to ask a question, but I'm going to first have Heidi say something because her hand was up. And then I'm going to ask the question, how many of you use these techniques and what does it look like? Heidi, what were you going to say?
I just had a flashback to when I was a kid and how, when you're upset or, you're sick, right? And you just really don't feel good and you may be crying, and just that act of your mom holding you, that part of physical touch. Or I remember when I was a kid, my mom just stroking my forehead. Just that touch just really just made me feel so safe.
Yeah.
And I just got like those beautiful memories just came rushing back. So thank you, because it really is about, like you were saying, the triggering makes you feel like there's trust issues, but then the safety aspect of the physical touch is just really cool. Thank you.
I love that you used the word safe. I meant to do that earlier. Usually when we are triggered, it's because we no longer feel safe. For a variety, it doesn't have to be trust. It could be a bunch of other things. Like you said, Patty, it could be rejection, abandonment, trust issues, feeling attacked, feeling like a victim, but we definitely don't feel safe. And that's what trigger's about. And this regulates your nervous system. Debbie, what were you going to say?
One of the other things that my counselor friend told me, and it's really helpful, and you can do it fairly quickly, even like in a meeting or something, is you have 5 senses. So just look around for 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can, what's the other? One is touch, a couple things you can touch. I'm missing something. Oh, taste is a little harder, but it just kind of gets your mind focusing somewhere else and just ground you. And if you can do it with your feet on the ground and just kind of put yourself in a calming position, it does help you to just get out of that momentary thing you're feeling.
Yeah, thank you. Is there somebody else? Yeah, Patty.
Yeah, interesting. I had this situation again. I'm gone. I think most of you know that we have a rescue dog. She's about 8 months old, and I have a client that comes to me weekly. She's about Nikki's age, but she's had a lot of trauma, and I have to focus and center her before I start doing Pilates with her. And I found one, I have to have her close her eyes. Two, I have breath work. So today, speaking of the dog, she was going to bless me because I'm gone, and she went and took our 2 dogs for a walk. Well, one took off after a deer and the other one followed, and she lost our dogs. And so she hasn't called me yet. I get this call, I'm not home, and the gal says, "Are you looking for your dog?" And I'm like, "No." And she goes, "Is your dog named Taz?" And I'm like, "Yes." So long story short, the gal had my dog, so I knew everything was good. I get a hold of my friend, and she is hysterical. I mean, hysterical, could not talk on the phone because she lost my dog and she didn't know if I was going to get hit by. So anyway, what I did is I took her back to the breath work, and I said, "Okay, I need you to stop crying. I need you to listen." And I had her close her eyes, and I had her take some deep breaths, and pretty soon we were laughing afterwards. And I was like, "It's all good. Nobody's hurt. Everybody's fine. Everybody's safe." And she was laughing. So I was to watch her go from hysterical crying to laughing probably within 10 minutes because of some of the things that I used that you just told us about.
Yeah. And I love that when you told me the story earlier, laughter would be a great way to regulate yourself. If you can shift to laughter, I know that that's super helpful for me. Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment? Just unmute yourself and go for it. All right. So just to wrap this up, I just want to offer you some suggestions. I'm going to remove me as, well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to offer you encouragement to see if you can practice one or more of these components this week. Because if you don't practice them, they'll be gone. And the next time you get upset, and one thing I did say earlier, but I don't think I was very clear of it. Number one, to practice any of these things, you have to first become aware. Oh, I'm triggered. If you don't do the awareness part, all of this doesn't work. You have to actually be aware, wow, I got triggered from that conversation. I got triggered from that post on the internet. I got triggered from seeing something in the news, whatever that is. And then you get to say, okay, what can I do to self-regulate myself so that I can move forward with resilience, being able to bounce back? So that's my story for tonight. I want to really thank everybody for being here. I'm so happy you're here because this was a really important thing for me to really dig myself into and to be able to share with everybody. And I'm hoping it's purposeful for all of you. And then next week, just to let you know, we have Jan Roberto, who's going to be talking about how do you get your brain online versus offline, not about resiliency, but some other techniques. So that's going to be a leadership call next Tuesday night. Hope to see you all on it, and be looking for a Zoom call that Patty and I will do. Hopefully it's going to work. So all of you will know how to download all of your customers and all of your partners on a spreadsheet really simply. So
Thank you, Nikki.
Nikki, that was awesome.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nikki. What an honor.
Thanks, Nikki.
It's really
And we'll
great.
see you in September
Thank
for another
you.
oh my
transformational
God, Phoenix is
Tuesday.
coming up. Can't wait to see you all there.
Woohoo.
See you Sunday.
All righty. Yes, you will.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
Nikki. So appreciate you.